aeroplane is still one of the most sought-after reconnaissance platforms in the world. It's based here at RAF Fairford with the 99th Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron of the United States Air Force, and here it goes, the Lockheed U-2S. U-2 pilot in the form of Popeye, as he's known, Scott Thompson. Scott, welcome to RIAT 24.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here. Absolutely excited to talk to you today about the U-2 and everything that can do today and in the future. Indeed.
So this aeroplane then performing a display routine for us. What's it going to consist of?
Well, today we're going to see the airplane practice a simulated flame-out approach. It just has the single engine that is right in the middle of the fuselage that is essentially designed around what you might recognize from the F-104 from Kelly Johnson's previous stable of aircraft. It's essentially an F-104 with glider wings stuck on it. They needed to get around all the different principles that people could identify as people producing an airplane, so they took existing parts off the shelf and made what you see today.
Indeed, that was one of the aspects that really compressed the development time of this airplane. As I say, that astonishingly short time frame from contract signature to first flight and then service.
Absolutely. It was what they call black procurement.
Yes.
So it was a very small, tight-knit group of individuals with a vision to create something that can do what we all know it can do today, without anybody knowing about it.
Indeed, because this was a Central Intelligence Agency program before it was a US Air Force one.
That's right, it absolutely started with the CIA. The pilots that flew it started out as Air Force pilots and went through a program where they called sheep dip.
Yes.
Made them look different. So they took those Air Force pilots, made them CIA pilots, and stuck them in this jet-powered glider.
So what are we going to see from it now, Popeye?
So now it's setting up for what is the high key of the simulated flame-out approach. As you can hear the engine winding down, you see drag devices beginning to come out in the form of flaps and speed brakes. That drag will help simulate that the engine was flamed out. It'll now execute a 360-degree turn down to the runway, at which point it will meet his mobile officer, that's the chase car, where he will talk him down, get very close to the runway, and then take off again for another circuit. But as of right now, that profile that you see is exactly what it would look like if the engine was flamed out.
Now, you mentioned the chase car there. It's a Dodge Charger, isn't it, these days?
Right, just like the police have.
And this is necessary because of various aspects of the low-speed handling characteristics and, of course, the design of the airframe, isn't it?
It is. There's a lot of tricky parts to landing a U-2, one of which is that the pilot is extremely tired and there's no one else to help him do it.
Yes.
So we have another pilot in the car chasing to provide inputs as the aircraft lands. So this pilot may have, not today, but on a mission sortie, may have been flying for 9.5, 10 hours and will be extremely fatigued. So that pilot that has fresh eyes in the car will be able to talk the pilot down, help him through any crosswind inputs that may be required, which are very difficult to see over the long nose, which varies in length depending on the sensor that's on it.
Of course.
So it's not always the same. So having that fresh set of eyes right behind you, helping out, telling you if you need to put a little more right rudder or a little less left rudder is very helpful.
And of course, it's got this bicycle-type undercarriage.
That's right. Right, so in designing the airplane, they need to design it as lightweight as possible. Every pound was an extra foot in altitude. So the more you saved, the higher you went. And that was the name of the game at the time.
Now, we hope here to be able to hear the communications with the chase car. The chase car is positioned... Where is it positioned at the moment?
It'll be positioned on the taxiway, if he's where he usually is. And
I see it now.
As he gets his clearance to land, or clearance to low approach, the light bar will come on, the mobile officer will accelerate onto the runway to execute a merge or a formation rejoin with the aircraft.
Now, the 99th ERS, part of the 9th Reconnaissance Wing, headquartered at Beale Air Force Base, California.
That's right. The home drome, as we call it, everyone comes, all roads lead back to Beale. So all the U-2 pilots from Beale end up coming out to the different forward operating locations that we have around the world, to include RAF Fairford.
So, next part of the display coming up then.
So the second part of the circus that we will see is a no-flap touch and go. This will be quite different from most approaches that you're used to seeing from other aircraft, in that it will approach from quite low. So if you're looking for it in your viewfinder, look over the trees, because it will be just over the tops of them, simulating a no-flap. This is in the event of a loss of hydraulics, and that's what powers the flaps in this aircraft. The problem with this is that you're still producing 400 pounds of thrust at idle with that engine. And with those long glider wings on a hot day, that airplane does not want to land. So in order to do that, you need to get right at the bottom of the envelope that will get you to near the runway. So you need to be at the lowest possible approach speed, which, if you are fast, will punish you for every knot fast you are over your calculated approach speed. The aircraft will float an additional 1,000 feet down the runway. Now, if you're working with a short runway, that can quickly become a problem. The procedure in the technical manual for this airplane is that if you actually have this happen on final, you shut the engine down. Otherwise, it might not land.
And we haven't yet mentioned the flying clothing that would be typically worn on operations involving these landings involving the chase car.
Right. Now, what is normally worn is a David Clark full pressure suit, which is similar to the space suits that were worn by the initial astronauts in the space shuttle program back in America. And it's small variations, but essentially the same suit. And what it is it's just enough to keep you alive in the event of a depressurization. That pilot would be wearing those gloves if returning from a high altitude flight, but today he's happened to be wearing just a normal flight suit, the green bag that you like to see, and is sporting a U-2 demonstration team patch designed by Cy Blick of the Planes Camera Banter crowd. So hello to you guys, and thanks for supplying that for us, Cy. So basically there's no excuses for this pilot because he's in the easy suit.
If someone, a U-2 pilot I saw a quote from once, said that once that pressure is on, it makes you feel like you're wearing a sleeping bag, stuffing a football helmet on your head and ski gloves to make dexterous movements even harder.
It's almost completely accurate. I like to describe it as a fishbowl on my head.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the interview where they check to see if you have the aptitude or maybe the lack thereof to fly this airplane, they put you in the suit, put you in an ejection seat on wheels, stick you in a dark corner of a dark room, and leave you there for an hour. And then they come back an hour later and see if you're still there.
A very privileged slot, isn't it, getting to join the U-2 program?
You could think so in some ways.
And there you can see the chase car in pursuit as the U-2 rolls down the runway. Very wide vision set operated by the modern day U-2 force, isn't it?
That's right. There's a whole host of modern sensors that can be attached to this airplane. We like to call it the Mr. Potato Head of aircraft and sensor carriers. And there's no other airplane out there that can take this amount of gear up to 70,000 feet anywhere in the world and keep it there for the duration this airplane can. On this one, there's one particular part that sticks out, the peg, the pylon equipment group, is the disc that sits on the back, looks a bit like a shark fin.
Yeah.
This airplane lacks that. piece of equipment, and that's the data link. That is one of the very essential pieces of equipment that allow the sensors to provide near real-time information to the commanders of battle space.
Yeah. And it's a capability that battle space commanders and those higher up the food chain, one might say, have been so reliant on for the best part now of 70 years.
That's right. There's not a U-2 pilot out there that wouldn't be able to tell you that they were taking pictures or picking up collect that didn't end up on the president's desk that day.
Rate of climb of the U-2, as we saw demonstrated to some extent on takeoff and on the climb out we just saw, is very impressive.
It's it's like strapping to a rocket and going for a ride. So I remember my first flight in a U-2 is something you never forget. It's usually when you sit in an airplane, you sit on your butt, you sit on your bottom, right? Well, on an initial takeoff on a U-2, you sit on your back. And it's the deck angle that is really shocking.
Yeah.
So I easily get to 10,000 feet at the end of a 10,000-foot runway. Now, it doesn't have the indicated airspeed that something like a Typhoon or an F-15 might have.
Yeah.
So it'll take a while to get there.
Yeah.
But it's that deck angle that gets you there. And it just keeps climbing like that. In the U-2, we have a 52,000-foot climb check. So while there might be some other reconnaissance aircraft flying at 52,000 feet for their mission cruising altitudes, it's when we conduct our climb check, because we're going a lot higher.
Yes. Now, given that we can't, unfortunately, hear, it turns out, on the frequency we're listening to from the chase car, what will the chase car crew be calling out now?
So the chase car pilot, the driver, is counting the pilot down from different altitudes. From what I can see from the booth here, he is 4, 3, 2, 1, and nice.
Well now, that was quite the spectacle. From the 99th Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron, the Lockheed U-2S from the United States Air Force. And I believe that if people stick around after the flying display, we might get to see something else, possibly.
You never know what's in store for you at RIAT.
Scott Thompson, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a wonderful insight into operating and flying this fascinating aeroplane.
Thank you.